Today on Locked On Red Wings, death, taxes, and Canada beating the United States in overtime.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Should have just said death and gone right to the intro. I think that would have been just as appropriate. Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for CNG Newspaper, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 Men's Hockey. And don't let my volume and energy level deceive you. That was a very exciting game out there today. I'm battling through a little bit of a illness. Shout out Scotty for covering for me yesterday with the crossover with Seth Topol of Lockdown Wild. It was an incredible crossover / preview between the two podcasts. You did a great job, even if you made fun of me for being bald without my ability to protect myself. But it was a great crossover. Give it a listen if you get a chance. But today, Scotty, we're going to talk about the 3-2 overtime loss United States had against Canada in the championship of the inaugural four-nation face-off. Scotty, when it comes to first thought on the final game of this tournament, what runs through your head?
Well, I have my actual first thought, which was a lot of expletives, and then my 30 seconds to 3 minutes maybe later, which was, this was such a win for hockey. And I know that we can maybe save that conversation for the end of the episode if we want to do. I know we have written their final thoughts on like the tournament as a whole. Maybe that falls under more on that umbrella. But what a fantastic hockey game this was, and what a great kind of way to showcase this beautiful sport to everyone. And I have some of my best friends that haven't watched a hockey game in over a decade and aren't hockey fans at all, that are texting me like play-by-play throughout the game and are freaking out and jumping up and down with every single shot on net and whatnot. And it's just the coolest thing ever to get to share this beautiful, beautiful sport that we all love with maybe people that don't regularly watch it. So again, we can kind of go more in depth on that, I think, at the end, but this game specifically was just, it was the best game in what was a fantastic tournament, and that's absolutely awesome. And it didn't go USA's way. I know that there's plenty of Canadian Red Wings fans out there as well, so I'm sure that they're all happy with this one. McDavid, I think you tweeted it out, but like leaving McDavid wide open alone in the slot in front of the net, whatever, is usually not a great recipe for success. And it's 1-1 going into the Olympics next year, so it'll be a fun one, and it just builds more hype for that. So yeah, I think really my true first thought was just, how on earth can you forget about Connor McDavid, and how was he able to? I mean, he's fast, so like he can kind of just do that. Huge disappointment, huge letdown. Really would have been cool to win this game, but it was hard for me as I calmed down. It was hard for me not to just think of this as a wild success for the league.
Yeah, the quote graphic after this episode is going to be, he kind of just does that, Scotty Bentley on Connor McDavid.
Right.
Obviously echoing all of your sentiments, but on the attempt to not just repeat what you just said back, my first thought was, how poetic is it? As much as it stings to be obviously a USA hockey fan living in Metro Detroit here, especially with how many of those guys are from Michigan, rooting for your own country to win, how poetic is it that in 2010 it was that generation's best player in Sidney Crosby who wins the OT winner and the golden goal? And I know this isn't the Olympics. Connor McDavid said it in the post-game interview. It's not the Olympics, but it's still a tournament we took seriously and wanted to win for our country. That Connor McDavid, then, this generation's best hockey player, scores the overtime winner. And so, it sucks, right? You want your own team to win, and especially with how well USA played in this game, especially in overtime with the chances that they had.
Third period too, man. They looked really good in the third.
To lose on one shot, I mean, that's all it takes, right? Is one missed player in position, one shot that doesn't get blocked, and the game's over, and that's what happened. But I just thought after the expletives and my thoughts on the tournament, it was like, okay, that was pretty poetic, though. Scotty, when it comes to difference makers in this game, I guess I'll lead it off because, the number one difference maker's got to be the guy who scores the goal in Connor McDavid. Overall, I wouldn't say a quiet tournament from Connor McDavid. Like, he scored against the USA previous, right? And he scored a couple times in this tournament, but like not the sheer domination you would expect from Connor McDavid. And in this game overall, I thought he was pretty well neutralized. The United States did a really good job of making sure Connor McDavid was, basically had a guy on him whenever he was on the ice. And they did a fantastic job of neutralizing him until that moment in OT where there was a miscommunication between, I think it was, honestly, it might have been two forwards with the defender playing his position, right? He was in the high slot. That's on a forward to cover. And the winger and the center both tracked over along the boards, leaving Connor McDavid wide open. And it was Connor McDavid who ended it. So how do you not name him your difference maker when he literally was the difference in the entire tournament?
Yeah. I mean, it's I agree with you. It's hard not to. I think it's also, he's hilarious. Like after the game, he's on the ice and he's like, yeah, I sucked today. It's like, all right, dude, like, you didn't have a 5-point game like you did against the Wings whenever that was. Like, you know what I mean? Like you didn't put up an all-time performance, maybe, sure. But I think it is so cool. And it's something that hockey can offer in this environment and not too many other sports can, in the sense of you are truly getting best on best at the highest level. The NBA has yet to figure out how to pull that off successfully. Baseball, like has an all-star game, but it's meaningless at this point. They try and whatnot, but it's not, like all out. The World Baseball Classic, I think, was a huge success. So that's probably the closest thing to it. But like the pure athleticism that you are seeing go head to head and with all out effort like that is something that no other sport can offer. And I think that's what made it so cool. So like when McDavid is flying past everyone on the ice, it's different than, like that's McDavid in Edmonton, but they're playing Chicago and it's, in the middle of a line change and you're like, wow, it's so fast. He's so fast. Like this is like he's blowing past the best players that the rest of that the US at least has to offer. Or like when he plays, when Canada plays Sweden, like same thing, and Finland, like this is the best that everyone else has to offer and throw at him, and he's still able to look the way he does. I think that's a unique spectacle that is unique to hockey.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Scotty, who do you have for difference maker?
Yeah, I honestly, and it's that's another one of those things that after I calm down after the frustration of the loss, like how can you not kind of just feel awesome for Binny, right? Like Binnington just took it in the teeth, man. We gave him a hard time on this show earlier this week, like just absolutely took it on the chin all week, and really was getting kind of dragged through the mud by hockey fans all over the place. None more, you could argue, than Canadians, and just went out there and had one of the best performances of his career. I say that he's had another really, really good performance to win a really
Game
important
7
hockey
in
game in that exact same arena before in his career. But some about playing in Boston really gets Vinny ready. But yeah, no, I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal in this game, to the point where US, I think, looked like the better team for probably the first 15 minutes of the third period. And by the end of that, they were legitimately just kind of chucking the puck at the net and just seeing if anything could happen. Like and like Matthews was hitting spots and hitting corners in the net, and it just didn't matter. I mean, he was absolutely on one tonight. So tip of the cap to Jordan Binnington for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this was a guy that we have been pretty critical of all tournament long. Not just us, obviously, like NHL wide, social media, everyone has been talking about, the decision to pick Binnington over other Canadian goaltenders like Logan Thompson, who has been Mackenzie Blackwood, who have been performing way better than Binnington across the season so far. And then in the most important game, second most important game he's ever been in, but most important game of this tournament in overtime, he stoned Brady Tkachuk, he stoned Austin Matthews. He was great, and so it's hard not to name him difference maker on the other end of the ice for keeping the puck out of the net with 3 or 4 chances in overtime. I mean, again, not just talking about overtime. He was solid, especially coming down the wire in the third period, but obviously that overtime is going to come to mind first for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Scotty, let's go to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about notable performers from the 3-2 overtime win for Team Canada in the inaugural Four Nations tournament. Stay tuned. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on fourth-quarter comebacks, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You're going to love FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your favorite team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, you're never going to feel like you missed a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you can get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wing. You saw me wind up for a big cough there behind the scenes. I don't think I muted before the inhale, so you just hear a sharp inhale and then nothing. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Notable performers, Scotty. How can we not lead off with the Detroit Red Wings captain, Dylan Larkin, who was, I thought, great in this game and overall great in this tournament. He worked his way up through a series of great performances on his own end, partly because of injuries, right? From the fourth-line winger to inevitably top-line winger, because you're not going to boot Austin Matthews out to the wing.
Top-line winger? Top-line center, buddy.
Yeah. So
he literally started off the tournament as the fourth-line wing that was being rotated out half the time in practice. And by the championship game, he was playing top-line center. That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, taking face-offs in the offensive zone. He was fantastic in this game, honest to God.
It's the coolest thing ever, dude. Like, it's awesome. Like, obviously, the loss, whatever, we kind of talked about that and the disappointment, but like, I think that one of the coolest possible outcomes for this tournament going into it, aside from obviously us being on this side of the border, U.S. winning a gold, was the entire hockey world falling in love with Dylan Larkin and being like, this guy's sick. And like, that's pretty much what happened. Like, as at least again for U.S. fans, like it really was just a I don't want to say like a coming out party, because he's point of game player last year. Like, it's not like, if you follow hockey, you're very well aware of the talent that Dylan Larkin is. But it was just really cool on a national stage to see him get the reception that he got and get the love and support and the fandom that he got in this game. I thought he was fantastic in this one as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he had like a 6-minute interview spotlight on ESPN Sports Center. Like, he was getting all kinds of love, NHL Network as well. Like, this was a tournament where, yeah, he's a 10-year vet. Coming out party is not the right word, but he definitely gained a lot of respect across the league as a very good hockey player. I think a lot of people knew Dylan Larkin's pretty good, but I don't think people realized I'm going to say a controversial word here, intangibles that Dylan Larkin brings to the ice, because not only is it there's the goal scoring ability, right? His ability to finish with his shots. There's the speed factor, but it's the way he's not afraid to get in the corners and win those races to the pucks and engage in board battles and wins possession for his teammates. One or two of those opportunities, I think the one that Austin Matthews had in front started because Dylan Larkin won the won the board battle down low and got it across to, I think, Brady Tkachuk, who fed it to Austin Matthews out front. Like, there was so many plays in this tournament that don't start without Dylan Larkin doing the dirty work. And then, of course, he got rewarded with the game winner in the round-robin game against Canada, and he had a couple chances in this game, too. A 2-on-1 opportunity. He had a 1-on-1. It was kind of like a pseudo breakaway. He had a guy kind of draped on him, but he wasn't like necessarily right in front of him, but he was battling for domination, breaking into the zone, couldn't score. I thought overall he had a very solid game and a really, really impressive tournament. And I think it kind of, I mean, you saw the same thing a little bit, not to digress here, but a little bit with Lucas Raymond with Team Sweden. Every time they had an opportunity, they were talking about the performance that Lucas Raymond had. A lot of people, I think, finally realized and have garnered a little bit more respect for guys like Lucas Raymond and Dylan Larkin. And, I mean, at the end of the day, like the biggest thing I'm hoping for is that, one, Dylan Larkin comes back healthy, and that, two, the energy from this tournament, right? Whether it be the exhilaration of winning, which didn't happen, or the frustration of defeat, it fuels you. And these two players come back from the tournament on another level, ready to play. I mean, they were playing a pace of hockey they've never played before. And hopefully they can bring that pace to the Detroit Red Wings coming back from the tournament. I don't know. Dylan Larkin, seeing him kind of become the face of the team, I think the Tkachuks were the face of the team at the end of the day.
I think that's
Love it or
hard
hate
to
it.
argue against. Yes.
But Dylan Larkin was right up there with those two guys. But they definitely talked about the Tkachuks every opportunity they got. And, I mean, they scored 2 goals each in the opening game. They kind of became the narrative from there on out, especially with the injuries and whatnot. But Dylan Larkin, I mean, every opportunity they got, they were talking about him as well. You got to love D-Boss.
Absolutely, man. No, and yeah, I think that's a fair line to draw of like a fair thing to look out for and to want, to hope that, okay, like you carry this momentum back into the Red Wings. And like, who are we to say, like, again, they were already playing really good hockey before. Who are we to say that, Larkin and Raymond playing in this tournament is going to just completely change like the outlook of the team? I'm not sure it's that dramatic of a thing, but I do think that when arguably your 2 best players, I mean, like Seider obviously is up there as well, but like you're pretty objectively your 2 best forwards go off and really go off. Like they don't just leave and go to the tournament. Both of them have fantastic tournaments and really prove themselves as, high-end players in this league, and then come back. I think that is a lot more eyes on them when they come back, which is cool and great for the Red Wings always. But I also think that it is just cool from a team perspective. You're bringing back people that represented their country well.
Scotty, another player that really stood out to me in this game, Jacob Slavin for Team USA. Going to be 31 here at the end of this deal. He's got another extension for 8 years kicking in. It's going to take him to age 39 with the Carolina Hurricanes. And they're looking pretty smart for locking him up. I don't know about the end of that deal, but he was their best defenseman this tournament. And in this game in particular, his ability to just break up passes and break up or block shots, did he not just personify Carolina's style of defense?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. He was a dog, man. He really was. That's a guy that just absolutely put his body on the line the entire tournament. I think absolutely became a fan favorite pretty quickly, and I think that when the Olympic rosters are announced, he's a guy that people will probably be looking to make sure he's on that roster too. Because he had a great tournament, and with the amount of skill and finesse that is on that roster, you kind of need to make sure you got guys like that too. That's why Brady Tkachuk was so valuable in the tournament, right? He kind of does both.
Yep. And we'll talk about the Tkachuks as well as the tournament MVP on the other side of this break, so stay tuned to Lockdown Red Wings. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy as one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience. They've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. With what sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I want to talk a little bit, too, about the Tkachuk brothers. I know we're pretty USA-oriented right now, but who do you think we were watching with a closer eye in this game? Like, let's be honest. Brady and Matthew Tkachuk clearly banged up, right? Like, you can see it watching the game. They're both just kind of hobbling around the ice. Brady plays the whole game, actually scores a pretty crucial goal, tying the game at 1 in the first period.
A lot of big hits, too. Yeah, he really, after that goal,
hits.
kind of looked a little bit different out there for sure.
Matthew Tkachuk doesn't play after like the halfway point in the second period. And it does, and of course you lost, so there's always going to be the hindsight question, but like, was it in the USA's best interest to play those guys, notably Matthew Tkachuk, who reportedly has a pulled groin, in this game rather than icing guys? Like, and again, Kyle Connor hasn't done a whole heck of a lot. I don't actually disagree with scratching him. He's been pretty invisible out there, but he's healthy. And Matthew Tkachuk on one leg inevitably couldn't play, and it shortens your entire bench up.
Well, yeah, they were pretty much running 3 lines there for. I mean, they were. The blender was out in a big way there toward the end. I mean, the bottom of that roster on the offensive lines was barely playing, at the game, because they were just like, screw it. We kind of have to just make do with what we have and make sure we got the best players on the ice as often as possible. So it's, yeah, man. Hindsight's 2020, but like they still took Canada to OT, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard for me to be like, oh, if they would have made this one change, or if Kyle Connor would have played instead, that maybe it would have been different. They still took Canada to OT. Like you know what I mean? They still, it's not like they got absolutely pumped and were like, oh my goodness, they got, overwhelmed and the lack of depth really cost them. Like, no, they lost 5-on-5 hockey with their top line on the ice. Gave up a goal to the puck went past your captain and went to McDavid in the crease. Like, no, I really don't think that it would have changed a whole lot.
Fair enough. Next guy I want to talk about, Nathan MacKinnon, winning the MVP of the tournament, the first ever MVP. Yep. I thought as soon as they were like, now to announce the MVP, I went, Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, he led the entire tournament in points. He scored a huge goal in this game, right? The goal to open it up, just a seeing eye shot from high in the slot, close to the blue line.
What a disgusting. The fact that that's possible is ridiculous. Like, he made it look so easy. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna just flick the puck at the net here. Like that went through like 30 people and then just found the top corner over the shoulder. That's ridiculous that is as easy as it was, but that's why he's one of the best players in the league. So
I don't know if you know this, Scotty, but Nathan MacKinnon is kind of gross. So
I guess that's really what I'm just highlighting, that it truly is how much better they are than the common man. Sans you, obviously. You have an elite prospects page, so
I do have an elite prospects page.
Yeah.
So Nathan MacKinnon was Nathan MacKinnon all tournament long. Like, there's not much else to say besides the fact that he deserved that MVP pretty much clear and away.
He's nuts, man. Absolutely nuts. And it's I was talking about like McDavid's speed earlier. It's so funny. MacKinnon, you watch him and you're like, wow, that's one of the fastest dudes I've ever seen on skates. And when he's on the same team sharing ice with McDavid, it's like, that's just a whole different level of human there, brother. You know what I mean? There's fast and there's McDavid, and they aren't the same thing.
But I thought USA, their game plan was really well, thought out.
They were fantastic focused in the neutral zone. I give a ton of credit to ESPN's broadcast, which I, don't usually do in sports, but I thought they really highlighted it well. US really didn't allow, like, they just snuffed zone entries. And like, if Canada was able to set up in the US's zone, then like danger happened, right? And there was a lot of high danger opportunities there. But getting set in the zone, especially there for the first, 10, 15 minutes of the third period, I think is where it was on display the best. They did well, man. The shots were pretty even for most of the game. Like they really did a good job of pushing everything to the outside. and really taking control of the neutral zone in the third period, which I think was a huge momentum shifter for them. They just, Binnington was great.
Yeah, I thought Zach Werenski for USA was fantastic as well. He led the tournament. I think I said MacKinnon led the tournament in points. I meant goals. That's just flu brain talking.
Yeah.
Zach Werenski led the tournament in points with 8 points in this tournament. Just incredible stuff from Zach Werenski. 6 points, rather. Again, flu brain, can't read. What else is there to say about Zach Werenski at this point, man? He is an extremely underrated defenseman in the NHL. I think he should get more Norris votes this year. I think he probably will. And I would love to see him reunited with his boy Larkin in Metro Detroit.
Well, I mean, yeah, man. I think that would be pretty darn cool. Yeah, so he's from Grosse Pointe and grew up in Grosse Pointe, and I'm hoping that I am able to write a story for work about like kid from Grosse Pointe in the Four Nations. That's kind of I'm hoping I can bring that to people here over the next couple of weeks, because he was awesome, and the fact that local kid like that, really, really cool. So I mean, obviously would love for him to leave Columbus, leave the state of Ohio, and come to the team up north. Why not?
I think everyone who lives in the state of Ohio would probably love to leave the state of Ohio. Anyways, final thoughts on the Four Nation tournament. I echo your sentiments from the very beginning of the episode, where I think this was a massive success, right? It took all of 20 minutes of the first game for me to go, oh, I was wrong. This is electric. These guys care. And you said it a couple days ago, and I'll repeat it here, but I never want to hear the words All-Star game again.
Yeah, and those weren't mine either. That was some tweet I saw, and I was just repeating it on here. So whoever originally tweeted that out, credit to them. But like, absolutely a shared sentiment, I think, by the entire sports world, not even just hockey fans.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that this should be a yearly thing, kind of, with the exception of like when the Olympics are played next year.
Yeah, but then you have the World Cup of Hockey. What, the year after that, 2 years after that? Like, there's. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it, because like you also want to get, like, in a perfect world, you get more teams and more players involved, right? So that you can reach a wider, I don't know, like if you can get more talent on the ice, obviously that would be in a perfect world scenario. But like, yeah, you got to do something with this. You got to, because this was I saw some reporter tweeted out today, like, this is the first time in maybe over a decade that ESPN just talked about hockey all day. Like that hasn't happened in ever. So like the fact that this got the attention that it got, like I said at the beginning of the show, man, massive win for hockey, massive win for the fans of hockey, massive win for us, even though you and I specifically were rooting for the US. But this was just awesome all around, man. This was so unbelievably cool. It's really hard to be too upset. I think this is a massive win for our beautiful sport, and that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's one team that could have been included in this, with weren't because of the political landscape, and I hope one day the political landscape of it calms down enough that Russia can rejoin the ranks of the tournament. I'm not the one who needs to make, going to make that decision.
Yeah, we'll see what even the Olympics look like next year. Yeah,
it would roll off the tongue just as well if it was 5 nations face off. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, you could also. So I was talking about this with my roommate actually during the game, because he's a huge hockey guy too, and we were just talking about the like Russia, if they are added at some point in the future, that would be 5. And then to get everyone involved, it wouldn't be the same. And I'm not sure you'd get the effort from this 6th team because they're not truly playing for their country, but you could have like rest of world kind of a thing. Cause like that's what the NBA is kind of playing with like a US versus rest of world type of format. And like, that's not A, that gives you an even number of teams, but B, it truly is just my attempt of like let's get as much other talent as possible in here, right? Like Sider's just never going to play over the All-Star break for the rest of his career. Like that's ridiculous. Like it's just some attempt to get, but I also am not sure that you're going to get the same passion out of somebody wearing a jersey with a globe on it that you are with someone wearing their home country on it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I don't know.
guys,
There's a lot of workshopping to do, but I think they got to find a way to keep something similar to this going and get as many players involved as possible.
Guys like Stutzla, Sider, obviously. Scotty, any final thoughts before we head off to the weekend? We got doubleheader to recap at the end.
Yeah, man. Double. What is it? A home and home. Yeah. So we'll.
Yeah, Minnesota and then Buffalo.
Well, you're gonna love this. It's also, as we talked about earlier, it's 3 games in 4 days coming out of the break. It's
Minnesota, Anaheim.
Yeah, so it's back to back, then day off, and then game.
Yeah.
So welcome back.
So
hope you guys are well rested and ready to roll, because we're not missing a beat here. We're hitting the ground running.
Dude, I don't know how these players are gonna. I wonder if they're, instead of like being energized, they'll be like a hangover. I don't know how you turn around 2 days later and play a game for your NHL team.
Well, and then you have the opposite effect for everybody else. You literally have a team that's full of either guys that haven't played in 2 weeks, or you have guys that, like Larkin, that just got ran to the ground in a like really intense tournament. I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be Red Wings hockey, baby, on deck.
They're professional hockey players. They'll figure it out.
They sure
Scotty,
will.
Any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode Monday, same time, same place. Your team every day.
Every day.